to talk to you about an extension to a previous video clip where I talked about academic misconduct. In particular, I want to talk about the mandatory use of Turnitin. As I mentioned in my previous discussion, universities worldwide have an issue which is the internet. When students are preparing assignments or preparing documents, then they have a huge number of resources available on the internet. And we want and encourage students to access information that helps them understand their subject, helps them present their essay or the argument in the consultation that they're doing. But we want them to ensure that when a student presents work, that it is their own work, and that if any source that is used is duly acknowledged, any material presented, if it is a quotation, is acknowledged to be a quotation, and so on. So USP, like many other universities worldwide, uses Turnitin, which is a plagiarism detection software, and it is a very sophisticated piece of software. So all students are required to submit all assessed work except tests and examinations through Turnitin, which is captured on Moodle. And this means that the university can immediately check and see whether students have been guilty of plagiarism. Now, I'll just qualify this slightly. If a student submits an assignment, Turnitin, what it does is Turnitin itself can't tell you whether the student is plagiarised or not. What it actually does is it detects whether the material submitted has been copied from somewhere else. And this is what's called a similarity index. The university regulation, the similarity index for an assignment submitted is greater than 20%. The course coordinator or the staff member is obligated to investigate that. Now, it may be when the staff member investigates that, they don't believe there is plagiarism. Let me explain why that might be the case. A student might have quoted large pieces of text and put it in inverted quotation marks and clearly acknowledged the source. But Turnitin just sees the material and says that has been published elsewhere, therefore the similarity index comes out high. So a staff member is not obligated to penalise the student or do anything about it if, in his or her judgment, then the material that is presented, albeit copied from somewhere else, has been duly acknowledged and there's no deliberate attempt here to deceive and fool somebody into thinking that this is something the student wrote when it in fact came from an external source. So just emphasise again, the critical thing is to do an investigation, to look at it and see whether there's a case to be made. We did an audit of the use of Turnitin and the consequences of Turnitin late last year. It was a very interesting exercise. At first sight, it seemed to indicate widespread plagiarism. But when we consulted with faculties and asked what they did when they detected this, we found two things. One thing we found was that in many cases what appeared to be plagiarism wasn't in fact plagiarism for the reasons I just explained. The students had acknowledged it and Turnitin showed the similarity index was high, but that in fact wasn't of any concern. One good example of that is where a short assignment, students might copy the instructions for the assignment. They put the instructions for the assignment at the front and then they presented their work. Turnitin doesn't know that, it just looks and sees text that's similar and it gives a similarity index of 50% because half of what's presented is the instructions. But a staff member would look at that and say, that's not a problem, the student's not been trying to deceive us, no problem. The second issue relates to penalties. What we found when we did an audit was that for the similar type of offence, different schools and indeed sometimes different course coordinators had quite different penalties associated with guilt related to plagiarism. So what Senate agreed earlier this year was that we would normalise the penalties and that this would escalate. So essentially a first offence would be a warning and an ability to resubmit an assignment. And the idea here is we're trying to educate students. So we're running the prospect that students may have not been as well aware as they should have been about the concerns about plagiarism. So the first offence is treated as a warning. A second offence is treated much more seriously because we by now believe that students have been made fully aware of the issue and there should not really be any excuse for misunderstanding what's involved. And then that means there will be a penalty of a 0 mark for that assignment and a written warning to the student that further offences result in more severe consequences. We actually, even in the cases like the ones I just mentioned, if we detect that a student has deliberately set about to cheat and to fool Turnitin, and there's a lot of places on the web which tell people how to try and cheat. We still do detect those. So it's a stupid thing to do to try and cheat Turnitin. We can detect that. So if we detect that somebody has deliberately set about to cheat Turnitin, even as a first offence, then more severe penalties will apply. So in summary, students are required to submit all their assignments through Turnitin. Academic staff are required to look at the similarity index. If it's above 20%, they are required to investigate that and see if there's an issue there or not. And if there's an issue, then to follow the now approved Senate penalties associated with the level of offence and the type of offence that's occurred. Thank you.